What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way with God at the center and Judeo-Christian values and real-world, first-hand experience. On those Christian values, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. In Leviticus 19:16, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord. International Standard Version has it like this: you shall not stand idle when your neighbor's life is at stake. I am the Lord. Your duty to protect as a man. Today's episode is going to be on an active shooter response kit. I'll mention in the bio, but I was the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. I was the commander of that. I was blessed to be a part of that. God put me in charge to head that unit to stop active shooters. What I did for a profession. I thought it would be kind of not using the talents God's given me to not go over this. That said, I did an episode that by God's grace will come out before this on how to stop school shootings. There's a lot more going on than just guns and gadgets and gear, and even tactics on stopping and ridding our society of school shootings. If you don't normally listen to Alpha Male podcasts, I'd encourage you to at least look up that episode. Should be pretty close in the feed if you listen to this when it comes out. Alpha Male podcast, stopping school shootings. This is kind of an addition to that active shooter response kit, but as one of the few people I think that has done this professionally, it's like as part of my job, because I did that as a police officer too, trained to stop school shootings and active shootings, but I mean our bread and butter, we existed and trained to stop active shooters in a big metropolitan area. That's what we did. And I thought it would be irresponsible of me if I didn't go over this to help you. With that said, if you haven't yet, scroll down and give some stars, maybe leave a review, share with a friend. I'm going to plug in the bio because I think it's germane to today's topic. I'm going to put in not the quick abbreviated one, but kind of a brief summation of professional gunfighting that I've done in my adult life. And we'll get into this active shooter response kit. So, who am I? Who is this person talking to you from across the internet? Why should you listen? First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Milito. Welcome to the podcast. Shooter Response Kit. Now this should be in addition to your everyday carry, and there's not a one-size-fits-all here. I really have encouraged you in times past, and it's a good reminder in light of recent events. EDC. Carry a basic EDC kit. A knife. A decent-sized fighting handgun, a tourniquet, your cell phone. You should have that on you. I encourage you, and I don't know if you're going to listen to this, but a very recent sad school shooting. Have a full-size fighting handgun. I hope that people listening that train regularly and consider themselves gunfighters to listen to Gunfighter Life could make those similar shots with a decent size fighting handgun. But think about that. What do you carry day to day normally as your go-to handgun? Is it a full-size combat handgun? Do you want to show up to an active shooter at a school or whatever? You're there to pick up your kids and stuff goes off, or who knows what it is. You're at the mall. Is that what you want to respond to an active shooter? Is your Ruger LCP or your Smith & Wesson J-frame? And I like Smith & Wesson J-frames, but it's not my daily, it's not my normal EDC. So really give some thought to that. I encourage you to try to carry a full-size fighting handgun. But you're probably going to want a little bit more. If that's what you have, that's what you have. But if you have time to grab more, what do you want on your kit for that active shooter response kit? Well, it's going to need to be quickly deployable because you need to get into action quickly to save lives. If people's lives are being ended in the present tense, more procrastination, the longer it takes you to get your kit ready, the more loss of life. And you shall not stand idly by while somebody takes the life of your neighbor. You need to deploy it quickly. There's a couple of things for this. Kind of my favorite go-to when I was the commander of the tactical team, I like a war belt. And I like most of my stuff on a war belt. That may be a good choice for you. You may decide that you want everything on your body armor. Or on a chest rig, like on an LBV, a load-bearing vest, that you can put either with body armor or without body armor. You may decide that's the route that you want to go. So I'm going to tell you I prefer a war belt. Keep one behind the driver's seat of my truck. I would seriously encourage you to have and train with a war belt, especially if you don't carry a full-size fighting handgun. But the stuff that I'm going to mention for an active shooter response kit, just you could put them on anything, either kit. You might want a tourniquet on your regular EDC. You might want one on your war belt. And if you're not doing the war belt thing, you could put a tourniquet on your chest rig, right? It'd be nice to have all this easily deployable in a bag. It can be an old gym bag, an old duffel bag, so you can grab it easily and put it on and don it quickly. And one solution, one size doesn't fit all. Even on my tactical team, I'd let guys run things different ways because it worked better for them. And I want them to be effective. So whatever's more effective for you, a chest rig, an LBV, everything attached to your body armor, a war belt, a bailout bag, a small sling bag, which I'm a big fan of, and that's kind of my step up in my line 2 gear, which I'll probably go over. And I've done episodes, videos on bailout bags, baby bug out bags. But let's start with, you need to have a firm foundation in when it's justified to take a life or not. And that starts and ends with the Word of God. So you need a firm foundation there. And I'd strongly encourage you to pray while you're getting your kit ready, if you ever need it in real life. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. A full-size fighting handgun. If it's not already your EDC on your body, this is the place where maybe you want it inside a bigger duffel bag, but that bailout bag comes in handy. You can throw it around you, drape it around the front of you, unzip it, and even have your hand already on the gun. But a full-size fighting handgun. I don't think anybody, their preference to stop active shooters for a handgun is going to be an LCP or a J-frame or a Kel-Tec PF9. There's nothing wrong with those. They are what they are, but they're not meant to be a full-size fighting handgun. And I don't care. I probably shouldn't say that as Gunfighter Life, but we get into all the minutia. I don't care if it's a M17 or an M9, Beretta 92 or the SIG 320 or a Glock 17 or a Glock 19 or an FN 509, or pick your favorite plastic fantastic, but a full-size fighting handgun that you're familiar with using. Yeah, a 1911 would be a good choice for this. Be a double stack 1911, an STI, whatever. A full-size fighting handgun that you are familiar with and trained with. You can don quickly. Again, you want it already set up in a war belt that you can grab and throw on. You want it in a small bailout bag that you can throw over your chest. and draw quickly from there. Laptop bag. But I think it makes sense to have a full-size fighting handgun and at least 2 spare magazines. Let's say 2 spare magazines for this. Again, on your war belt, on your LBV, in your load-bearing vest, in your little bailout bag. Just have them available. Let me actually go grab my war belt and we'll talk through it. One thing you may want handy, whether it's a chest rig, war belt, a get off me tool. I like a push dagger. Ran one. I was doing this professionally. It's tucked into the war belt. I kind of camoed it in there, a similar color, so you really have to know where it was to go digging for it and find it. But if I need it, I can grab it with either hand. If you go around a corner, you weren't paying attention, whatever, somebody's on top of you, wrestling for your gun, it's a good, useful tool to get somebody off of you in a hurry. I like a push dagger, any kind of concealable straight edged weapon in there would be okay. We'll get to the long gun in a minute, but whatever kit you're running, chest rig or war belt, have a way to stow a spare magazine for your long gun, if that applies to you. But somewhere you can stow a spare magazine and have ready access to it. Next, handcuffs, and they're not just for law enforcement. Law enforcement in most jurisdictions check your local laws, but they're not the only ones with the power to arrest. There's what's called a citizen's arrest. What if you're the only one that shows up? That's a bad situation. To take one person out and there's another. You want to get that gun away from that first person you took out and then handcuff them. That's not uncommon for police to handcuff somebody they've shot. Less of a issue that you may have to deal with that person again. Handcuffs, for a lot of reasons. If the person gives up, they surrender, there's still another active shooter. You might want to secure them to something. Anyway, a lot of reasons. Handcuffs aren't expensive. Do some training with them, know how to use them. But if we're talking about an active shooter response kit, I think they make some sense. If you don't want to go the full handcuff route, a good set of flexi cuffs come in handy. Next, I have a less lethal option. You may want pepper spray. I have a collapsible baton. Either one of those, you may want a less lethal option. You may decide you don't want a less lethal option. That's okay, but I'm going to mention it because it's on mine. I have a length of 550 cord wrapped around my war belt. You could do it on a chest rig. Easily deployable. You might think, what is that doing on an active shooter response kit? Well, you never know what you're going to need it for, but sometimes you just need it. Also, if I'm trying to open a door and I think that's where the shooter is and he's waiting on me, what's he probably going to do if I go to open that door? Shoot at the door. Guess where I don't want to be if I'm opening that door? In front of the door. I can, a lot of different ways, open that door if I have a length of cord and not be there. It's a good way to not get shot in the face. A lot of times people just think of just a shooting. But urban warfare, as I was an urban warfare instructor in the Marine Corps and went to war twice, doing these kind of operations, it's a thinking man's game. It's a, cardio and thinking go a long way in helping you in these kind of situations. By the grace of God and His provision, I survived a lot of nasty situations. It's a thinking man's game. If you cannot be there when rounds start flying and fire and maneuver, right? That's been doctrine for a long time, fire and maneuver. Anyway, that cord on there, I'm getting a little bit of a side piece of 550 cord or something like it for that situation or many other situations. Next, I have another tourniquet. Tourniquets are important. Speaking from somebody that's had to use them before, and speaking from somebody that's had to use a belt as a tourniquet before, they can work, but it's better to just have the tourniquet. Trust me. It's a part of my EDC even. I'm going to tell you the best one is a cat. I think they're on Gen 7 now. But my general EDC is a rat tourniquet because there's just only so much stuff I'm going to carry day to day. Concealed carry as a civilian. And I'm going to tell you the cats are better. So for this situation, you might strongly consider a cat tourniquet on this kit. But the rat, the SWAT T, have a tourniquet and know how to use it. I'd rather you show up with one of the worst of those 3 tourniquets and really know how to use it than the best one and be fumbling around trying to figure it out because it's still in the packaging and you haven't pre-staged it. A tourniquet, pre-staged, easy to grab with either hand on your kit. Wherever that applies to your chest rig or your war belt or your bailout bag. One thing I have on my kit is a small compass. I also used to run one of these on the shoulder of my body armor. Why? Because if you're showing up to a building or a place you haven't been before and you're inside, it's pretty easy, at least for me, to get disoriented. You got people shouting, the shooter's south side, and you're like, where's the south side? You're in some food court and you have no idea which way south is. Well, you got a compass. You can easily look over on your shoulder and see which way south is. So a small compass comes in real handy on your kit, or can come in real handy if you need it. And then a good locking holster. I'm going to specify locking holster, not just a passive retention, but an active retention holster. Why? Because many fights end up on the ground, whether you intend them to or not, and that includes gunfights. It can be a big advantage if somebody goes to grab your gun and it doesn't just come out. If you're talking about concealed carry, it should be less of an issue because once it's unconcealed, it should be in your hand. If you're talking about on a war belt, on a chest rig, an active retention holster makes a lot of sense. I don't want my adversary or somebody, if I pop around a corner and I'm distracted, to be able to grab that gun and shoot me with it. I want it to have a locking mechanism. I might still be able to get it out, but it might buy me some time to grab it and keep it in the holster or go to another weapon. I mentioned the get off me tool. Whatever the case is, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm not going to say it's a shall, but it's a strongly encouraged for you, I think, to have an active retention holster. It's often referred to as a level 2, so an active retention and a passive retention, whether that's with your finger, your thumb, a rocking motion, whatever it is. Some level of active retention on that holster. Body armor. You may just want to run all this on your body armor. You may not. If you're running a war belt, you can easily decide whether or not you want to take the time to put on body armor if you're not already wearing it. I did a whole episode on body armor you may want to go check out. Next, I'm going to say a decent flashlight. Whether or not you have one mounted on your handgun, and for this situation, there's really no reason not to if you're carrying it in a bailout bag or a war belt. I'm not a big fan of lights on handguns. If you want to run one, this is a good situation and a good time to do that. But whether or not you do that, you're going to want a good handheld light. You don't always want to point a gun at everywhere you want to point a light at. So a good handheld light makes a lot of sense on your kit. Next thing you might not think of, but you might want in this kind of kit, lockpicks. Now, if it's going real fast, you may just have to kick doors down. You'd be surprised. The vast majority of doors, commercial, residential, you can just kick open. Like, that's just a real thing. I've been a professional door kicker a long time. Most doors you can just kick open. But if the shooting has stopped for a little bit and you don't know where the threat is, you might not want to go advertising where you are. It may be good to covertly open a door. And lockpicks help for that. And you don't want to figure out how to pick a lock in that situation. You should probably know how to pick a lock. Lockpicks make a lot of sense in your kit and your little bailout bag, on your chest rig and your war belt, whatever the case is. You might get confused. You get a lockpick set with like 20 different picks. If you get good at it, you'll generally find that you use maybe 2 or 3 things. A tensioner and 1 or 2 different style picks will open the vast majority of locks. You probably don't need a bunch of them that are on there. Either way, lockpicks, again, skill goes into that. It's not the time to try and figure out how to pick a lock. I mentioned the tourniquet, but you may also want a good medical kit. I'm not aware that they even know that I exist, but I recommend Bear Independent and Refuge Medical, the Bear Fac, the small of the back kit, the Bear Minimum. Any of these, depending on what fits on your kit best. The small of the back kit was kind of made for a war belt, a good small kit. Just some more medical supplies. Not everything is a tourniquet. You might need a chest seal. You might need to know how to put on a chest seal. You might need some compressed gauze. You might need to pack a wound. Basic medical kit. Also, another thing you may consider is a decent size carabiner, D-ring, whatever you want to call it, on your kit. Just for the miscellaneous you may have to grab and throw on your kit. And one of those things like 550 cord. You never really know what you're going to need it for, but you often need it. Those D-rings is pretty handy to have on your LBV or on your war belt or something like that. So maybe consider that. Now let's move up in the use of force. A long gun. A truck gun. Now I have both, but my number 1 and 2 recommendations for this is going to be a reasonable rate of fire shotgun, 12 gauge, and or a fighting carbine. M4 type carbine, and I love AKs, but I think this is a place where the AK makes less sense. And not because it's a less effective gun. I'm a big fan of the AK. The issue with it here is, for whether you like it or not, the AK is often seen as the bad guy gun. People are showing up with guns. You might not want to be the guy grabbing and holding an AK. If you really like the AK platform, maybe look at something like a Galil, where it's an AK in operation, but it doesn't really look like an AK. Somebody that's not a real gun nut that looks at that is not going to know that it's an AK. A lot of people that look at AKs associate it with a bad guy gun. That doesn't really make a lot of sense because guns are neither good or bad in and of themselves, but I'm just telling you it is what it is. So if you're trying to not get shot, maybe this is not the place for the AK. An AR-15 is the most common. And I'm going to tell you that the lowly Palmetto State Armory that you've trained with and know that's reliable with a hollow sun on it is better than the Daniel Defense Mark 18 that's at home in your safe if you're responding to an active shooter. I think this kit belongs in your vehicle. I think a long gun belongs in your vehicle. You can decide whether you want to go shotgun or carbine. Whatever your kit is that we've discussed previously, whichever way you want to go on that, have a spare mag or 2 or 3 on there for your primary weapon. You're probably not going to need them, but there you go. Now, my number one pick for me for a long time, for maybe the next short amount of time, is an AR pistol. However you want to quantify that, a short-barreled AR. Really, really good for this. I really like it. But a normal size M4 16-inch carbine, do you want to run a red dot or an LPVO? Both have pluses and minuses, speed versus precision. Either one is good. Have one and train with it. Have a pump action or semi-auto, good, reliable shotgun with buckshot and slugs and know how to use it. Maybe if you're going the shotgun route, maybe have some breaching rounds and know how to use those too. I really like the shotgun for a lot of these applications. That said, the carbine is a good go-to as well. I have both in the back of my truck. You may decide you want both, depending on the situation and what you're doing. But the long gun, and with the long gun, a way to have spare ammo. I'm not going to get too far down that rabbit hole because I've done many episodes, but I just did one not too long ago. You should be able to scroll back and see it on a fighting rifle setup. There's really no reason to deviate too far from that setup here. Have a sling, have a white light on your long gun, and have good usable irons or an optic. And again, red dot, LPVO. That's zeroed with the ammo that you're using. And we should touch on ammo. I mentioned having spare ammo. And obviously for your fighting handgun, I shouldn't say obviously, you should hopefully have good street-proven expandable hollow point ammunition. Spear Gold Dot, Winchester Ranger T or Ranger, Hornady Critical Defense. I don't really care so much about the brand. I care that you've tested it out of your gun, shoots point of aim, point of impact, and it will expand out of the barrel length that you're using. If it's a full-size fighting handgun, less chance of it not than a compact concealed carry gun. But check that box for ammo, those couple of boxes for ammo. Same thing with the carbine. Military uses full metal jacket. Not a good choice here. Good, defensive, expanding, whether it's soft point or hollow point or ballistic tip or polymer tip, ammo that's designed for the use you intend it for, that expands out of the barrel length and velocity you're going to use. I like Federal True Tactical Rifle Urban. I like Hornady Frontier Bow Tip Hollow Point Match. These are loads I'm giving for an AR. And Spear Gold Dot. Yes, they make those for the 223 as well. Again, important that they shoot point of aim, point of impact. If we go into the range and zeroing your gun with your 55 grain Winchester white box, loading up with your 77 grain Super Ultra Man Stoppers that shoot who knows where. Shoots point of aim, point of impact. Is designed to expand out of your barrel length in your gun. It feeds in your gun when fired by you. Check those boxes with that ammo. There's many other things that you may want, but I think I've covered the big ones. We like to focus on stuff. Skill. You need to have practice room clearing, CQB. And this came up in the chat today. They were asking, I've learned all manner of CQB and room clearing. I learned it in the Marine Corps mount. I helped teach a more updated version of that when I was an urban warfare instructor for Mojave Viper. Also, FBI certified firearms instructor. I've done it in private contracting. So in many training things that I've attended. And you know what? They were all different, but they were all very similar. I care less about a specific doctrine of you always clear your corners first, you always go long first, or you always button hook. The first man always goes right or left. That is less important to me than these things. Courage. I don't care all the tactics you know. If you don't have the and parts to go into a room while taking fire, this job is not for you. Hesitation will get you killed. Tactics. You could have the best tactics in the world and just stand there in the corner and suck your thumb and get shot. Courage. Decisiveness. Violence of action. Whatever CQB tactics you want to use, those will go a lot farther, whether you button hook or not. Whether you fully penetrate a room or taught to shallow penetrate a room. Been taught all different manner, as I alluded to. Courage. Violence of action. Speed. And as I alluded to, it's a thinking man's game. You would be surprised at how exhausting it is doing CQB for any amount of time because there's so much thinking that's involved. People think of gunfighters as these brute beasts that just kick down doors and shoot. It's a thinking man's game. It's like 3D chess while you're juggling. The fundamentals of handgun shooting can be hard to execute sometimes on a static range. Imagine with all this stuff on you after you've climbed a couple of flights of stairs and you're trying to communicate. So, I'm just going to touch on that, but all the stuff is not going to make up for lack of skill or lack of courage or lack of violence of action. Anyway, that is kind of going to culminate the active shooter response kit for active shooters, school shooters, mass shootings. Now, they have no affiliation with me other than they've trained me in the past. But of all the training I think you can get available to civilians, of all that I've had over the years, if you're looking for professional training, I'm going to recommend PFC, Progressive Force Concepts, out of Las Vegas, Nevada. A myriad of different courses, many or not civilians, let's just put it that way. They also will train civilians. They're not paying me to say that, just honestly, of all that I've had, and I've been an instructor at one of the largest firearms trainers in the country, a professional firearms instructor for them. I'm not recommending them. I'm recommending PFC. I think if you're looking for a good handgun course, a good fighting rifle course, whatever they call it, may call it like tactical carbine, I'm not even sure. I've done quite a bit of training with them. Of all the training I've had over the years, that includes FBI, that includes Marine Corps. If you could get those, I think PFC is some of the best training you can get. One of the things that they taught me, when you're responding to an active shooter, ask to people that are fleeing, because likely there'll be a lot of people perhaps fleeing the scene. Ask, where is he at and what does he look like? Where is he at and what does he look like? Where are they at and what do they look like? If they're wearing a red shirt, a pink shirt, a blue shirt, it's handy to know. That's good information to have, right? So it helps identify you as the good guy. Many of them probably won't answer. They'll just run and scream. It's a good practice to get into, and they taught me that a lot, along with a lot of other things. Ask for information on the shooter when you're responding. Where are they at? What do they look like? Maybe what are they armed with? If you get somebody that actually responds to you and is coherent in that kind of situation, and many likely will not be thinking clearly. You get somebody to say, "Oh yeah, they're wearing this and they're in this area. They're armed with this." A lot of civilians don't know what different kinds of guns are, but they might be able to tell you it's a long gun or a handgun. That's pretty handy to know. Anyway, that's your tactical tip of the day. Ask for information as you're responding. Where are they at? What do they look like? What are they armed with? By the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, if you got 3 or 4 people again telling you they're on the south side of the building, then don't waste time. Go to the south side of the building. If you hear shooting ongoing in a different part, it's real-time information feedback. Gather that information. That's your tactical tip of the day. Before I get into wrapping up the episode, consider becoming a patron. Really. If you thought this information was useful and you want more men to be armed, hear about the podcast, you want it to continue at a good frequency, You want to be an active member of the tribe. Consider becoming a patron. Also, things patrons can do is send me pictures of kit or ask me questions about kit. Hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? Even many times they'll send me videos of them doing certain drills and I'll say, here's where you can improve this or that. I've been a professional teacher of these kind of things for a long time. I can generally look at somebody and critique them and help them out. It's part of it. I can do the same thing on a video. See a video of your kit and your war belt set up and say, here's what you might want to think about. Or I'm trying to decide between this thing and this thing. And I would say, well, in your situation, maybe thing A is better. And that's just small things that you get as a patron. So consider that. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Especially if you're going to buy any kit after listening to this episode, maybe consider going to Patreon and signing up for $5. Anyway, with that, the tactical verse of the day. I'm going to give you a couple that are good to know, especially getting ready to go into a gunfight. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Also, for by you I can run against a troop. By my God I can leap over a wall. Also, it is God who arms me with strength and makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He sets me on high places. He teaches my hands to make war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. Anyway, some good verses to have on hand and have memorized. Also, I should mention before we get into the last tactical verse of the day, if you're setting up a church security team and you need help, reach out to me at goodshepherdtraining.com. I may be able to help remotely for free. Again, that's goodshepherdtraining.com. Psalm 91, a psalm of protection and blessing. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, you are my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I will trust. Surely you shall deliver me from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. You shall cover me with your feathers, and under your wings shall I take refuge. Your truth shall be my shield and buckler. I shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at my side, 10,000 at my right hand, but it shall not come near me. Only with my eyes shall I look and see the reward of the wicked, because I have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, my dwelling place. No evil shall befall me, nor shall any plague come near my dwelling. For you shall give your angels charge over me, to keep me in all my ways. In their hands they shall bear me up, lest I dash my foot against a stone. I shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent I shall trample under foot. Because I set my love upon you, therefore you deliver me. You set me on high, because I have known your name. I call upon you, and you answer me. You be with me in trouble. You deliver me and honor me. With long life, you satisfy me and show me your salvation.